I find as I mature that I am remembering moments of my early life long past forgotten. Old age has its quirks. It plays head games and gives birth to Loki moments. Little periods of confusion. It is not unusual for me to forget why I crossed a room or draw a complete blank as to what I was about to do. Yet, here I am remembering a moment that I am positive took place during my toddler years. It had to have been 1959, perhaps 1960. I know right now that you are thinking there is no way I could recall anything that may have taken place at such a juvenile age. Sorry to say, but I most certainly do. In HD picture clarity. Over the years of my youth I learned from social workers, siblings and research that from the age of 6 months to approximately 4 years old my father and my mother were having a constant tug-of-war over who was getting custody of my elder brother, sister and me. But, apparently, not so much me. Trains were the most common mode of travel between my hometown of St. John, New Brunswick, and Toronto, Ontario. My mother had left my father when I was 6 months old. Escaping, with my older siblings, the mental and physical abuse and alcoholism of my 23-year-old father. Mother was a beautiful 22-year-old whose Irish genetics gave her a strong will and mind. Looking back on her life I fully understand and forgive her for the choices she made during that dark period of her life. Choices that trapped her into a life of alcoholism and street toughness living in the newly built Regent Park public housing. Later in life I asked her why she left me behind and not my sister or brother. Her answer was simply, when you were born you looked just like Al Capone and I knew you were going to be a gangster. I believe her now and I believed her then. Sadly, she was right. I have always been a gangster of some sort. Nigh on 65 years now. Sorry, had a squirrel moment there and wandered off topic. The trains. Oh how I love my memories of being on them. Traveling back and forth from home to Toronto. Depending on who won custody in what province. I've heard from relatives that my parents were in a constant flux of kidnapping us from one another. Some saying my father did so out of love and is wanting us to have a proper life. Proper by his standards. At first, mother was fighting for the same reason. It has been said that later her reasoning was to secure a higher welfare check. Makes no never mind now. Past days are gone. Oh, but those 2-day train trips. I can distinctly remember the burgundy passenger cars and the smell of the diesel engine wafting through the open windows. Porters tending to whatever needs or requests of my fellow passengers. Looking so professional in their Canadian National Railway uniforms. I recall a few journeys. They were always of me alone. I have no recollection of being accompanied by any of my siblings. I was always escorted by my great aunt, Bubby Lane. A woman straight out of the days of the Great Gatsby by appearances. In reality she grew up, as did my mother, in a combination billiard room/Irish speakeasy. I do not and cannot tell you of there being any conversation that may have taken place during any of these trips. I have only flashes of playing on the floor of the coaches. Of other passengers pampering and entertaining me or vice versa. One trip in particular seems to be of special significance to me. I often dream of this one. Aunt Bubby had purchased a pair of British Beefeater guard dolls from off the porter's cart. You know the ones I speak of. Those tacky ones they manufacture for tourists. I remember the porter helping me remove them from their packaging. I imagine they were meant to act as a deterrent for my annoying poor Bubby. I remember playing with those two statuettes for hours on end. Marching them along the windowsill as the locomotive barreled its way down the tracks through New Brunswick, Quebec and into Ontario. Playing soldier underneath the fold-down seats. Oddly, I have no recollection of the Ontario lag of the journeys. As it was with all the trips. I will never know why that trip stands out over all the others. It being such a simplistic event that for reasons unknown is a significant memory of my youth. Perhaps it was the only time during that period of my adolescence that I felt safe. And happy. Because that is what I remember the most about that trip, that I was not afraid. I even remember Bubby rewarding me for not defecating in my pants. Something that I did numerous times daily or so I am told. Something I received capital punishment for doing. I know now that crapping my pants was one of my major defensive mechanisms. One of my weapons of manipulation. I learned at a very young age the art of manipulation. Actually, I believe that it is an inherited trait. Not the shitting of my pants. I mean the inherent art of manipulation I had perfected. Perhaps passed down from the many generations of the familiar Irish non-compliance that runs so rampant on both sides of my family's gene pool. I feel previous past life experiences of having lived as a Viking. I sense this from deep down in the murky darkness of that which is my very existence. Laugh if you wish. Those who know me best understand the gifts and curses I have. From my having proven premonitions to my just knowing things. Knowledge of a brutal, but proud, life as an explorer of the world, of society and mankind's love and blind faith of Norse gods or whoever they perceive as their creator. Knowledge of barbarians cloaked under the guise of religion. Even as a wee lad I had to know. I had to know who, what, where, why and when in regards to whatever I had experienced or encountered. I absolutely could not handle not understanding something or someone. A trait that deemed it necessary for me to become streetwise. A trait that deemed it necessary that I learned post-haste how to use the newfound knowledge to manipulate the outcome to my favor. Often used to obtain goods or services needed to survive adolescence. I was far more streetwise and tough than most my peers. I self-describe best as an original urban Viking with a touch of a Peaky Blinders attitude. Knowledge is like fentanyl to me. A more powerful intoxicant does not exist. I am constantly seeking to learn. I do this both consciously and subconsciously. I will die learning and I will learn from dying. The latter I have already done many times over during my past medical crisis events. I am learning right this moment. I am asking myself why? Why are those train trips surfacing now? Why are there merely clips and snippets of information in them? They were different days back then. A time of global change for all society. Rock and roll had crept into the newly invented radio waves. Peace, love and hippie dope crash landed on the tarmacs of all cities. Vietnam wasn't a war. It was merely a conflict. And best of all, television told us that Calgon could take us away. But only our hairdresser knew for sure.